I didn't think that this conversation was going to go in this direction, but I'm going to bring it up just because it's annoying for me as a baseball fan. This is why baseball is annoying. It's because baseball, like, they just don't do anything outside of like none of their big name athletes. Like, you don't see Mike Trout on this list. You don't see him on this list because he doesn't do endorsements and talks, and he's not vocal on social media and everything. Which is
Yeah.
again why baseball, unfortunately, is one of those sports. Is a sport that's just losing popularity with younger crowds because younger crowds are like, okay, first off, I can't watch highlights because they're not anywhere, and because the Major League Baseball's got a kibosh on that for some freaking reason. And then
Yeah.
after that, not only can they not watch highlights, but then they also, the players aren't vocal. They don't see them in social media. They don't see them on shows or appearing in shows or appearing in movies or all of these things that Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar and LeBron and all these people have done, Tom Brady even. And then not only all that, but then on top of all that, you also have things like the freaking incident where Tatis Jr. hit a, grand slam last year for the Padres and he swung on a 3-0 pitch and people were like, "Oh, he's breaking an unwritten rule in baseball, swinging on a 3-0 pitch while his team's up." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, is the name of the game not to freaking swing the bat and hit a home run?" Like, I don't understand, like, "Oh,
Was that
let's
a real
just not."
controversy, really?
Yeah, that was a real controversy, Dylan. The manager came out and said that he broke an unwritten rule, and it was,
Oh
like,
my god.
ridiculous. I'm not kidding. This is why baseball's losing popularity, and I love baseball. Like, I love the ins and outs. I, played it for 13 years. I love all the duel happens. I love watching that. I was a pitcher, so I understand the mental game and kind of where ball placement, pitch choice, all that fun stuff. I understand all of that aspects, and it's just I can see the game just losing popularity as this type of stupid crap happens. But yeah, it was an unwritten rule that he shouldn't have swung while they were up by so much with a 3-0 count and whatever. Who gives a crap? I'm sorry. I didn't know that you can't swing a bat and hit the ball. Like, I didn't know that that wasn't the name of the game at all times. Like, I don't care if you
Baseball's
lose by.
normally so uncontroversial. That's a noted story on the week.
Dylan, it's so sad. It's so sad. This is why baseball isn't as popular. I mean, it's popular in America, but this is why baseball just doesn't have as much popularity as it could have because of crap like that. Like, you don't need to go over this whole, like, the manager coming on and talking in a press conference after the game about that. Like, do you think that when the freaking Warriors in their heyday like blew out the freaking Timberwolves by 50 points, that the owner of the Timberwolves got on TV the next day and was like, "I can't believe they just kept shooting the basketball after we were down by 30." And it's like, "Oh, really? You couldn't believe that they were shooting the bat?" Like, I
Yeah.
just it's just stupid. I don't this is what I'm saying. This is why baseball is losing popularity. And I love the sport, so it hurts to like see that it's losing popularity, but I also understand it because I'm like, listen, every other sport has been doing it well. And then you know what the other problem too is the NHL is in the same boat. Like the NHL, you know where the NHL learned all of their media stuff to? They went to freaking baseball. They like
Yeah.
talked to baseball about like their media and like advertising and all that stuff. That's why you never know when a freaking hockey game's on because they never do it. They never advertise it. So it's like, are the Blackhawks playing? I have no clue. I don't even know if it's in season yet. Like, it's one
You
of those
find
where
out
they
when you
just
go to
don't.
the bar because that's the thing
That's
they're
what
advertising for the night.
yeah, at the bar when it's on and I'm like, "Oh, we're losing 4-1. Interesting." And then I just like continue on with my life because they don't advertise it ever. Even though like hockey, if you look at like polls consistently where people like vote on like what's the best playoffs situation in any sport, hockey's usually like number 2 behind the NFL. And it's like, how do they have the second best playoffs as far as major sports go in America, and yet they don't, like, they're not popular because nobody knows when it's happening. Nobody sees the highlights. Nobody, like, players aren't in media. Like, even when the Blackhawks were in the dynasty thing, like, did you see Patrick Kane and Tays go on like national TV? Like, yeah, they were in Chicago and
No.
stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, they didn't go
That's
like they have like things like the NBA and stuff. They'll have like they'll have I don't know like Kevin Durant or whatever like on Jimmy Kimmel like before the finals like tip off or like whatever it is. And no, they don't go on talk shows.
yeah,
They never did that because they were just like, I mean, I
that's
guess
what I'm
they should
saying.
have. It's kind of weird now that they didn't because I know there's so much dead air that they could be filling with like the new CBS local drama, but instead they do that. instead of like whoever's the going running for the third championship in 5 years, what have you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's bad advertising. Whoever the advertisers, the advertising department, as well as like the development department for the freaking Major League Baseball and the NHL, should go to the NFL and just ask, like, hey, how did you guys blow up to be as big as you are? Because, like, yeah, the NFL's been a big thing in America, but like, why is every single game in England sell out? Well, it's because we've like advertised there well, where people are enjoying it and people follow teams. Like, there's Jaguar fans in freaking London that like are like hardcore, go to every single time the Jaguars are there. That's, they say it's like one of the biggest followings is the Jaguars having that like there. So it's just weird that like the NHL and Major League Baseball just don't have that kind of like, I don't know, just young like crowd, young audience that like actually wants to watch the games. And
Well,
then the other issues too is they always talk, sorry, 1 second. They
yeah.
always, the other issue too that I want to point out too is they always talk about the games being too long, and they always talk about like, oh, we're going to put in a new rule to shorten the games. Yeah, then they put in a rule and it's supposed to shorten the games, and the games are somehow still 3 hours, like 3.5 hours. Like, I'm like, of course people aren't going to want to watch that. Like, it doesn't make any sense why that, and a game that's, when a game's on at freaking 8 o'clock at night, good luck trying to get me to watch that on like a Tuesday night at freaking 8:30 when the game comes on, and I gotta watch it till midnight, and we're gonna lose 4-2. Like, I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, no,
Like,
what I was gonna say about that is that it actually wasn't that long ago that the NFL was in the same exact boat as baseball. Not in terms of like the lack of popularity or anything, but like access to social media, sharing highlights, things about broadcasts, all that sort of thing. It
yeah,
wasn't really that long ago that they had NFL.com as the number one place to get all of your highlights for local things. Like they basically did the same thing that all media companies do, where they try and like subjugate it to one specific area and draw the traffic there, but at the cost of the NFL's video player. I don't know if you remember this, was horrible. It's still
yeah.
horrible. I don't know if it still worked anymore because nobody uses it and nobody ever wanted to use it, but it was terrible. And the only way that I actually watched highlights, I'm pretty sure lots of other people started watching highlights, was off of like a streamable link, which is basically just someone grabbing it off of like a pirated feed or what have you. But that got shared around and that got millions of views because, oh, it turns out people want to watch a highlight when you could jump to it and it actually loads immediately with no ads. And then it's in HD compared to like the 480p they did at NFL.com. And now they're sharing them on Twitter and whatever else they're doing it on now, because it's easily accessible. It's click, it's boom, send to your phone, pick it up, and then you're easily able to watch it. Going to a desktop website in like this age now, specifically to watch highlights, or even worse, being forced to watch it on mobile in like a intended desktop website, is terrible. And they made a huge turn, and now, yeah, you can look at everything. The second it comes out, the NFL tweets like, even like a touchdown, like game-winning play, or whatever else. It's not like
Yeah.
hidden, because it's so stupid that baseball's trying to do that, where they're like, oh, well, we don't want to share our content to other people because we want people to come to games, watch the broadcast, whatever. So if we share the highlights, people clearly won't watch the game. It's never been like that. It's been like that for like
No.
10, 20 years. It's been the opposite, and they're not
Well,
switching
and
to that.
yeah, and you have to get with the times. I mean, it's the like with everything with YouTube and everything, the popularity. I mean, most of the content that I watch is on streaming services or YouTube. I probably watch like more YouTube than I do actual shows and
And what's
movies.
the
And
reason
it,
for that, primarily?
for me, like why
Yeah.
I choose to.
Yeah, like
Well,
why'd you
it's
start to switch to that? Why would you not watch TV?
well, okay, so okay, I like just to kind of talk about it. So obviously, like commercials are obnoxious.
Yep.
I pay I pay $10. I spend the most time on YouTube, so it makes sense that I would pay for YouTube Premium. I pay for YouTube Premium for me because I don't get ads because I can watch videos instantaneously the moment I click. Considering it's the service that I watch the most, I'm okay with spending $10 a month to get YouTube Premium. It's not a big deal. So
Yeah.
I have YouTube Premium and I get to watch every video. The moment I click on it, it starts. I don't get ads and anything like that. What's nice about that is I can click on anything and there's all kinds of, I follow YouTubers for video games. I follow YouTubers for sports games. I will follow YouTubers that talk about their do like reviews on things. I watch YouTubers that react to stuff. I watch YouTubers like I have a Madden YouTubers that I like. I have 2K YouTubers that I like for basketball. I have all these like different YouTubers that I can watch. So when I'm in the mood for like, like, oh, I just heard some football news from the Bears that like energized me and I'm like hyped up. It's like, okay, well now for the rest of the night, I can click on just YouTube videos that are pertaining to like NFL, Madden, that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
I can watch it instantly. And
Instantly. That's an
yeah,
important thing too.
instantly. That's the other thing too is and that's why streaming services are so huge because you can watch it instantly. Like it's just the season's there. If you want to watch the show, watch the whole show as it's out currently, and then that's it. And like, yeah, shows might come on to like Netflix like a year after it's been out or something like that, but like I don't need to watch. We've evolved to where most of our generation doesn't need to watch shows like immediately. Like it's not one of those things where it's like I need to wait Sunday, I need to watch it every single Sunday. Like that's what I'm looking forward to. Our generation has kind of gotten to the point where now where if I have to wait a year for the new season, I would rather wait a year for the new season than try to figure out where it is on TV or on a streaming service every week and then try to watch that every week. I would like, nah, it's fine. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll watch the other previous 3 seasons that are available. And then when the new one comes out, watch the new one. Like that's fine. So I think that's why I've transitioned to more streaming services or YouTube is because watching live TV is just not as entertaining. Like the ads are supposed to be, obviously they track everything we do. Nobody's surprised by that. Some people are, and it's blows my mind when they are, but essentially everything is tracked. So ads that pop up on certain things, like when you're watching an NFL football game, you're not going to get ads for things that you would see on a cooking channel or things that you would see on like a late night, comedy show. Like it's going to be ads that are focused to who are the core people watching this game right now. So that's how it is with every single show and every single network. If you're watching cooking shows, they look at statistically who's going to be watching cooking shows at 9 o'clock at night on a, Friday night. And it's like, okay, well, here's the base. Let's advertise to that base because this is what they purchase. So like that's how advertising is. And so for me, like I don't need to go through all that advertising. Like I would rather just watch YouTube or a streaming service where I don't get the ads or I can skip the ads or whatever. And so yeah, so that's just I mean that's my little rant on all that, but to kind of
Yeah.
get back to what we were saying though, that's why baseball and NHL have lost their popularity or lost the popularity contest to like the NFL um and basketball because basketball in the NFL you could watch highlights like you said instantaneously. But not only that, but you can also go back and watch highlight videos and the NBA and NFL aren't shy about putting out videos that they know we want. Like they'll put out highlight videos or they'll put out like watch Julio Jones moss a guy or something like that for a 45-yard catch. So then
Yeah.
it's like yeah, I want to watch that, that's what I want to watch. So then they put that little clip out there and I watch it. Like it's so that's
I mean,
the
there's active
NBA.
engagement and things like that too. There's like
Yeah,
the what is it? Like every team now has, at least if not one social media person, maybe two. And like that sounds like a stupid thing and people would be like, "Oh, why would you have a job doing that?" And yeah, it's probably an intern most of the time, but still like that active media engagement, you think people wouldn't like follow their NFL team that closely on Twitter or whatever, but they usually do. I mean, especially around like draft coverage and everything, everyone's like, taking in all the news they possibly can from that. The
I mean,
schedule, I mean, God, the schedule's commercialized. I was thinking about that, but that's another conversation.
yeah, but I mean, look at for example, we did a whole segment on when freaking before Justin Fields got drafted, when the Bears put that whole tweet out there of QB1 and it was Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
That was one tweet by a social media or that was one post by a social media service that the Bears run, and it lit a storm of people just posting videos and content on just that tweet. Like that's what the NHL and Major League Baseball is missing out on is things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, they're
it's
it's a very easy thing, and it's like I don't know if they're trying to convince people to let go of this idea that the content's so sacred they can't spread it around or they'll lose money, but they should recognize now that you are losing money because there's opportunity cost and it's not being used or taken. So
yeah, I don't get it, but oh well. I mean, whatever. It's unfortunate that I love baseball and it's like slowly starting to lose the popularity that it once had, and it's its own fault. And so, I mean, I'll still watch obviously, and I'm still going to be a fan, but it's sad, it's one of those where it's like, Manfred is just running the freaking baseball into the ground, and it needs to get they need a new commissioner is what it is. I mean, with the NBA, you know, um, Adam Silver took over, his name's escaping me, can't remember who the previous commissioner is that basically led the entire NBA charge into becoming as popular as it is. And then
Yeah.
Adam Silver has basically kind of continued that work. And that's what needs to happen is you need to get somebody like that who's going to come in and basically understand that we need to start marketing and start advertising to a newer generation that, isn't into this whole, like I said, I love baseball, so I love all the ins and outs and everything like that, and I love, watching a pitcher's duel, but I also understand that to a common fan, a pitcher's duel is not entertaining where for 3 hours there's 1 run scored and, nothing happens. But if you sped the game up a little bit and maybe you advertised a little bit and you showed highlights and you had the players talk and you did like those, sports science type of videos that others,
Those are
others
awesome.
team yeah, like those types of videos that other people do where it's like, like in the NFL where they're like, he hit a top speed of 22 miles per hour on this run. Like that
Yeah.
kind of stuff makes you go like, oh, that's an athlete. Like that's a real athlete that just did that. Like it's like I can't just go do that. And when you realize that you just can't go do that, it changes everything. So when like for a pitcher, for instance, if they actually like talked about like a pitcher's duel where a guy goes shutout 9 innings, throws 108 pitches. If they
Yeah.
actually talked about like this is how much strain is on your arm for 108 pitches. This is what it takes every single pitch to throw this. Like if they did that like at a regular basis and talked about those things, like people would realize like, oh, pitching's hard. Like that seems pretty hard to do. Like, I appreciate now that this guy actually did that. Like, that's the type of stuff that needs to happen, and that's why, like, you have an appreciation for all these things in the NFL and NBA because, when they show, like, like, "Oh, look at that dunk," like, "Here's the vertical that he reached on that dunk, and here's the" like, it just adds so much more to the understanding of, like, yeah, this is a game that's hard, and, like, that's how it should be for the NHL and baseball, they just don't do that.
Yeah, and just to end on that note, just how far ahead the NFL is, it like I was thinking about this last week before all this stuff was announced because I forgot they even made a night out of it. But like the NFL gets that much coverage, and again, it's a
Yeah,
dead season right now. I get it, but
yeah.
um, yeah, it gets that much coverage off of announcing its schedule for the upcoming year. Like it literally gets that much news coverage. It goes ESPN, sports segments, people, us talking. Unfortunately, we are also the people who would be talking about it because it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. But at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, now we got the schedule for the year. Let's break down what those matchups are going to look like. Like, what does it look like going in the bye week? Everything like that's a day
Well,
that they made a
and they
3 hour
also
special for.
and they're also smart too because what they did was is they what happened? The draft happened 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So you know what they did is they let the draft happen. All the players went to where they were gonna go. The picks went in. Everybody talked about it for 2 weeks, hyped it up. After about 2 weeks, which is a reasonable amount of time, obviously, to talk about a topic such as the draft, it starts dying down a little bit once we've finally like gotten through all the shock and everything like that. As soon
Sure.
as it starts dying down, bam, here you go. Here's the schedule. Now you have to think about all those rookies and their matchups and all the other stuff. It's right on cue 2 weeks later. So
Yeah.
it's like it's the intelligence of planning out when these things like you don't have a ton of stuff happening in the off season, but pacing them out at the correct times is what makes the NFL the NFL, and that's why they're, as popular as they are.
Yeah, it's just absolutely wild to come up to think about that. But